misty morning haze, I find my way through the winding trails where wanderers stay. With every step I take, my spirit roams free in the mountains of Cody, where my heart longs to be. I trade the city lights for starlit skies, where fireflies dance and moon never hides, away from the noise where silence feels right. I'm catching dreams in the mountains under the pale moonlight. Oh, nomadic life in the mountains I reside, where the wild whispers guide my soul to find a simple kind of beauty, a life so divine. In the house of Cody, where dreams intertwine.
Okay, so this is a poem by yourself. There you go. Let's give him a big hand.
You asked for pictures. I hope this
Yes.
was good
Maybe
enough.
you can introduce while I find the PPT which comprises. So please maybe have a quick round of introduction.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can go ahead and introduce while I pull up the things which we discussed.
Oh, it's in the same.
Oh, it's in the same one? So I can use the...
You just have to go to the next slide.
Oh, go to the next slide.
Yeah. And you have to arrow key or something.
I think there's an arrow key here. Yeah. Maybe I'll go here.
Yeah.
That. Yes.
So I need to thank Srikanth, Jatin, Nadeem. They all kind of, I suppose, propagated my message that I did on the same stage probably about a year ago.
Maybe, hopefully, slightly differently. Let's see.
Yes, definitely differently. But anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think my job is done.
So I think we are here to talk about your new venture called BharOS. So maybe tell us about that.
Okay. Yeah, BharOS. I think he just slipped through the previous slide. I don't know if you noticed.
Want to go back there?
That was for you. BharOS. So BharOS is very, the idea behind BharOS is simple. Today we don't have control over our digital lives. Our data, while technically we generate the data, we create the data, we don't control it. And I think most of you who work here ensures that we're never going to control it. Okay. Simple example, I think the last gentleman spoke about cryptographic, so it's more secure. But then who controls the keys? They even speak of the chain of trust. Who controls the keys? The keys are put into the silicon. Who controls that? So there are issues in who is controlling our digital lives. And we all agree that we all have digital lives. And we all also agree that in the best case scenario, if we don't control it, our government should control it. It should not be an organization that does not even function from our country. It cannot be an unknown organization in an unknown country somewhere else, because today the cloud and internet and technology enable us to do that. So the whole concept of BharOS is your data belongs to you, your digital identity belongs to you. You need to take back control of that. And so the way we approach that is at what I would call a fundamental level, a very back to basics kind of an approach. So what is the thing that's enabling your data to be stolen? The thing that enables data to be stolen is the operating system. There are different names for all the operating systems share something in common. Fundamentally today, pretty much all the operating systems and all electronic devices are based on Linux. And everyone tries different mechanics and different controls on that. So for what I would say different reasons, they call it open source, but technically or practically it's not open. So we took an approach, we took this as a challenge, and we came up with 3 simple principles. Number 1, for an application to run in an operating system, it needs to know it's running in a safe environment, in a very predictable environment. So we call that chain of trust environment. So that's one of the first core feature that an operating system must provide, so the app can trust the OS. The second is we call it NDA. I'm not associated with any political party, so don't take it that way. No default apps. All of you have mobiles, you go and you buy a mobile phone, you're going to get it with 150 mobile apps. You don't need 149 of those, okay? So the operating system should be purely an OS, it should not have apps in it. And the last one is when a device with an OS with no apps is practically useless. So you need a mechanism which will allow you to configure the operating system and install and remove apps. That's it. We call that pass. I copied in +2 and I passed. So the description is private app store services. Now you might be wondering, Wi-Fi conference, BharOS, what's the link? I think the next slide we can probably.
So I think the last time we talked about was more from the smartphone side, but
Correct.
Now I think because being a Wi-Fi conference, I think we want to have Wi-Fi router. So maybe
Yes.
the question is now, why in Wi-Fi routers?
Yeah. He came up with the question, so I had to go, I did some Googling and I found something, 80% of Wi-Fi routers can be hacked. How many of you think that's true?
My Wi-Fi router has been hacked, so. Yes.
Okay. How many people, how often do you think your OS gets updated in your Wi-Fi router?
I think never.
So I think this number is reasonably safe. Okay. So it is a serious, problem. It is a serious issue. And the reason for that is economics, I would say, because ISPs provide Wi-Fi routers free of cost. So there is no incentive on the ISP to kind of do anything. So it's kind of, we have gotten to a stage where it's a problem, but it's a problem nobody owns. So we have, say, okay, we look at it as an opportunity. Can we do something can we apply the same principles of BharOS on mobiles to routers? And the answer to that is yes, we can. Of course, you're not going to have apps running on it, but you're going to be, you're going to still need the same mechanism of chain of trust, that the OS is in a state that's cryptographically verified, and it is configured remotely, centrally, whatever, cloud management, whatever you want to call that. I think there was a gentleman here who kind of mentioned, I think Nadeem, if I'm not mistaken, he said that his customer wanted only trash 9, trash 69. I think that's the name of the protocol, right? So essentially, we don't have a standardized, published mechanism for managing Wi-Fi routers, okay? I'm kind of old school, so I like SSH. It's a simpler protocol, it can be done. But I would say for what I would call political reasons, even TLS 1.3 is not bad. At least it allows you to manage your own certificates. You can manage your own chain of trust. But it is unnecessarily complex, that's a separate topic. But essentially, that's the approach that we have taken, zero configuration, very simple stuff to do. And I think one of the questions Srikanth asked was any other reason. I thought, fame and fortune is good enough reason, right?
So maybe take a break. Any router people, do you want to respond, Sai, about some of the things?
Trash talking?
Yeah. Anything you would like, or anybody wants to counter Karthik? If there are ISP or people who make equipment for ISE, or people like Plume who do a lot of stuff behind. Okay, so I guess people accept your points now, at least
Hey,
in this.
it's boring, man. I'm leaving. Sorry.
Don't worry, you'll get this thing. Okay, let's talk about the next point then.
Okay. So this was, I think getting the OS on the phone, we spent probably 2-3 years. Getting OS in the router was even more interesting. There are a lot of pretty much all consumer grade routers, and I'm sure people are probably going to jump on me if I say enterprise router, whatever that means. Okay.
There are a lot of enterprise people here.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I did this air quote. I think that's cool, right?
Yeah.
So, they're all running some variant of OpenWRT. That's pretty much it. They make some small changes to U bootloaders, and then they take control over that. We looked at it as more from a what's required to make it consistently secure, consistently reliable, consistently dependable. So one of the things we are able to do in our routers is it's able to ask itself, have you been modified? What changes have happened since the last time? And if the changes are there, it means it's in an unsafe position. Then it can kind of reset itself, so to speak. Okay. So we have taken some of the, what I would say, approaches that we do on mobiles, not all of them, some of them, and we have applied the same things here. For example, your root file system will be a read-only file system, and the configuration is cryptographically, it's stored in an encrypted manner. The key is stored in a remote place. Simple things like that. In terms of wish list, I think if all Wi-Fi manufacturers, they agree with what I would call a control protocol. There is a huge opportunity in terms of publishing a standard. So all Wi-Fi routers can be managed in the same way, because if the best that we have today is trash 69, you can imagine this 80% problem is not going to go away anywhere, anytime soon. That's one. Second wish list, I think I would say, is that SoC manufacturers, come on, don't take more logic and stuff it into the silicon. It's just software. Let the operating system do its job. Because the more logic goes into the silicon, okay, we get to benefit from it, I think 2030 or something, right? That was the consensus today, right? So, let's at least protect the environment. I'm sure, I'll get enough support on, at least on that aspect. So we need to move, we need to consciously move towards simpler systems, keep only the features that work, ignore everything else. So Wi-Fi 0 is probably, looks like the only solution to this problem.
So he mentioned about enterprise. Some of the enterprise people, are your systems secure?
Yes, they are. So things like. So again, I talk for, and then I'm sorry if some other enterprise vendors don't agree, but but most of the enterprise grade APs do have a chain of trust. Right, there is at least I'll talk about Arista. Arista APs have a TPM where a Arista Vault signed certificate is placed, so you can't change that certificate. It's there always. There is cryptographic check at every boot to make sure that the OS is an Arista signed OS is running on this. So a bulk of the things that you said is being done. Everybody does it in a different way. I agree, that's something that we should look at. So we do take a lot of care. There is a process where our APs are tested by a third party. Every so often we get reports, we try and fix everything that it does. So, I'm sure all of my colleagues from all of the well-known enterprise AP vendors do very similar processes. So I do believe that we do that. Now,
see, I would say one help which enterprise vendors can actually bring to the table as far as, the SoC is taking more control away from the, higher layers.
Yeah.
We are pushing binary blobs, what they call firmware or microware or whatever. They come up with new terminology, it's the same crap, okay? We need to collectively work towards.
So Karthik, one of the challenges there, and then if you go back to, let's say, 11N kind of time frames, right?
Yes.
11AC, that was how it was done.
Yes,
all control was with the driver. You could modify that control.
Yes.
You could figure it out. But as the line speed continues to increase, it's very difficult to do a lot of things in a general purpose CPU architecture.
I agree.
You have to push things into the firmware, and now even right into the silicon, not just the firmware on the silicon, but right into the silicon. It is required because we have this fetish, and I'll call it that, to take higher and higher speeds, right?
Yes.
Right, like 4096, who wants it, right? 5x6, you are getting like 20% gain for almost, 16 times the kind of resolution that you need to do.
The complexity. Yes.
It is just,
insane.
but all of us, see, what sells, right? You have to have marketing that sells. How do I sell more and more APs, right? So we are all in this rat race of increasing the link rate, and as you continue to increase link rates, you have to push things to the hardware. I don't think we have a choice.
No, there are certain things we can push to the hardware. For example, I spoke about data protection. If my what do you say, my phone is talking to my access point, that airtime information, I don't have access to that today because the SOC vendor thinks it's proprietary information, intellectual property, whatever.
So I'll take a step back and say it's not the SOC vendor, it is actually the AP vendor
Okay.
who thinks he doesn't want to give it to you, because most of the enterprise grade chipsets that I talk about, you say Qualcomm, Broadcom, all of these guys give a lot of information. We do get a lot of information from the chipset. How we use it is up to us, and we try to abstract that information in a way that network administrators can consume. Because if I give all the information in raw, one, not everybody needs it. Two, it is just too much data to send over the wire and store.
I think this is,
So,
we will continue this
We'll
debate
continue later, but yeah, let's
Yeah,
proceed.
I think, do we have a home vendor who wants to jump in and tell anything, that an ISP or anybody, if you are there? I've already asked Sai, he's not into or doesn't want to get in, so I'll not force him. Anybody else? Because we have the enterprise voice, but anybody from the home side? Because I think primarily this is a challenge, possibly more from the home side. So maybe let's maybe close with any lessons from the smartphone side or anything that you would recommend.
Yeah.
Or maybe also talk about what activities currently you're doing which addresses this problem.
Activities I'm doing is I'm promoting BharOS on anything that runs Linux. We want to bring some standardized consistency on that.
So you have any commercial offerings coming? Anybody pushing it out into the market?
Hopefully in the next 1 or 2 quarters. Is that enough enterprise speak? We have tied up with ITI. ITI is the India's first PSU. They've been extremely supportive. More supportive than, I suppose, enterprise vendors or, so we are looking at them manufacturing products with BharOS in them. So.
And what lessons from the smartphone world would you bring and say to get it smoother and out into the market?
See, the smartphone world is essentially a very closely held mafia. Okay. The
Wi-Fi is not so much?
Wi-Fi is, they want to be in that space, right? It's like Wi-Fi is they talk about 3GPP. It's more out of jealousy than anything else. That's how I see it,
Any questions for Karthik? I think I summarized this. Any questions from anybody? Just 1 minute. Sudarshan, you can get mic to Sudarshan, please.
Can we sell products with BharOS outside India?
You can sell it wherever you want, but we first have to work together to put it into your products, right? So,
Krishna, yeah.
Yeah, just curious, when you say mobile phone, is it already in some mobile phones today? Or
it works in a few mobile phones, different chipset vendors, multiple chipset vendors. But because the product is not in the market, I can't talk about it.
okay, thank you.
Karthik.
Yeah, Jatin's question.
See, what you are trying to do is to take control of this phone. Now, if you look at the phone ecosystem, right, all of the vendors today, their primary source of income, I'll not say revenue, income, is not from the hardware that they sell. It's actually from the data that they get from it and what they do with it, and, app stores and whatnot, right? So the source of income is somewhere else. Now, by doing this, you are taking that away from them.
Yes.
How do you think you will convince them to let them run your OS on that hardware?
See, it's like this. In the mobile phone ecosystem, a very classic problem is this. Currently, the way the system works is the operating system supplier, operating system vendor, I think that's the term, OSV. OSV offers somewhere between $12 to $15 per phone. So the OSV has figured out how to, compute a business value on your value, lifetime value, which roughly represents about 3 years. $12 to $15 is what they're paying them. That's an incentive for the manufacturer. And so I go to the manufacturer with a value proposition. He's saying, hey, okay, you're coming to me. Today I'm selling a phone at 8,000 rupees. I'm getting 1,000 rupee incentive. I'm making 1,000 rupees on that. So you're telling me you give me 1,000 rupees. I have to let go of that 1,000 rupees. So I have to sell the same phone at 10,000 rupees. No one's going to buy that. Okay, this has been my experience in the mobile phone world. Okay, fortunately in the Wi-Fi world, no one has figured out how to monetize, whatever data that's there. Okay, and I think because the business model in the Wi-Fi routers and other appliances is very different. So we think market acceptability in terms of volumes or numbers will be much greater in devices like these. But yes, if you ask me, the principles behind BharOS is that we don't want your data. We don't want to control your device. Even the control, while we have a mechanism called pass, we are not going to be running our pass server. You get to run it yourself, or let someone you trust run it. I don't even want to know what apps are on your device. I don't want to know what data is on your device. I would say that I don't want that responsibility. It's not that it can't be done, it can, but I don't want that responsibility.
Okay, so I think with that note, I think we're glad to end. Give a hand for Karthik and wish success.